I paid over $6,000 in tolls this year, you guys, through November. Now, tolls seem pretty inevitable, but I wanted to take a closer look at this to see if there's any way that I can save on these tolls. So I did a bunch of research, and in this video, I'm gonna tell you guys what I found so that we can figure out if there's any ways that we can save some money on these tolls. Hi everybody, welcome to White Glove Trucking, my channel dedicated to helping you use trucking as a vehicle to live your best life through trucking independently, retiring early. My name is EJ Anderson, the congressional auditor turned long haul truck blogger, also known as the happiest, kindest truck on the road. So today's video is all about tolls. Let's just jump right into it by first looking at the numbers. So big picture, I drove 96,636 miles through November. I spent $6,113 on tolls. So that makes tolls my fifth largest expense for my trucking operations. And it comes in right after taxes and right before permits and fees. So at rounding out the top five, tolls are important. It's not insignificant. Okay, now let's drill down a little bit and look at some specific states, right? Okay, first you got the number one state I spent the most tolls on is New York. In New York, I almost spent $1,200 in tolls at $1,183. Number two, you've got Pennsylvania at $884. Number three, New Jersey at $861. Number four, Maryland at $744. And number five, Indiana at $605. So rounding out the rest of the top 10 of the states I've spent the most money on in tolls, we've got 6 Illinois, 7 Ohio, 8 Delaware, 9 Maine, and 10 Florida. All right, now I also broke it down by the states that I paid the highest toll per mile. And so the number one state based on toll per mile is Delaware at 44 cents per mile. Number two was New Jersey at 42 cents per mile. Number three, New York at 34 cents per mile. Number four, Indiana at 33 cents per mile. And number five, Illinois at 28 cents per mile. And then rounding out the rest of that top 10, you've got number 6, Maine, number 7, Maryland, number 8, Colorado, number 9, New Hampshire, and number 10, Pennsylvania. Okay, so now I want to highlight a couple of states here. So first I want to highlight a state that was less bad than I thought, and that would be Pennsylvania. So I sometimes get so frustrated going through Pennsylvania because when I look at my Easy Pass statement, sometimes there's a toll for like $138 going through Pennsylvania. I'm like, what is going on? So I always think Pennsylvania is way too much. Their tolls are way too high. But when I looked at the numbers, even though they did come in at number 2 state, I paid the most tolls in overall, they actually only came in at number 10 in terms of their toll per mile because I had actually driven a lot of miles in Pennsylvania. So even though it was still a lot of money, it's not as much relative to how many miles I actually drove in the state. Okay, so that was the state that was not quite as bad as I thought. Now I'll tell you about the state that was a little worse than I realized. But before I tell you that, let me tell you my theory on tolls and weigh stations. I feel like in the East, they have higher tolls, and that's the way they kind of get their money from us. Whereas in the West, there aren't that many tolls, so they got to get their money a different way. So they have a really high sort of like presence at those weigh stations. So, and that brings me to the state that I thought was worse than I thought, which is Maryland. Maryland has a reputation of being the California of the East. Their weigh stations are always open. And then when I looked at my numbers, I also saw that Maryland has a lot of tolls. So doing this made me realize that Maryland is basically the double whammy. High tolls and high weigh station presence. So Maryland is a little bit worse than I thought it was. Okay, now I said I was gonna see if we could find some ways to save, and I did find one way, but honestly, basically, you guys, they kind of got us. These tolls are, it's like, it's inevitable. They might as well add that to the list. The only absolutes in life are death, taxes, and tolls. Okay, but there is one change I'm gonna make, right? Now, I have been doing this sometimes, but I'm gonna make this a strict habit now after doing this analysis. Now, most of the tolls are in the Northeast. So I'm going to use an example of going from Washington, D.C. to Hartford, Connecticut. This is basically the route that includes all those states with all those high tolls. And so let's take a look at this and let's see if there's a way we can avoid some of these tolls. Okay, first, let's break down exactly where these tolls are and how much they are. Okay, coming up from DC, right? So I broke this down going basically north and south because they're different. All right, so going north. In Baltimore, you got the FMT tunnel, $24. You got the JFK Bridge in Maryland, that's $48. In Delaware, you got the Delaware Memorial Bridge, but that's south only. In Delaware, you got the Newark toll, $10. Then you get to the New Jersey Turnpike, and my average toll was about $70 in New Jersey Turnpike. And then the George Washington Bridge is $100. So all in all, going north, tolls were $180 going up 95. Now, coming south. So south, you don't have the George Washington Bridge anymore because that's only a north-only toll. So you've got the New Jersey Turnpike, $70 again. You got Delaware and Newark, $10. Now you've got the Delaware Memorial Bridge because that is also a south toll. And by the way, that kind of balances out the JFK Bridge in Maryland because the JFK is going north, the Delaware Memorial is going south. There's a $12 difference, so they basically kind of balance each other out. And then last, you got the FMT tunnel in Baltimore again for another $24. So total price coming south is $115. Now, that route is 353 miles, okay? Okay, now this is what I've decided to do. I am gonna skirt around I-95 and go up I-81 through Maryland and Pennsylvania to New England, to Hartford, Connecticut. Now what that does is, it's 435 miles, which means it's 82 miles more than going up 95, right? So I estimate that adds another $50 in fuel. Now, there's also a Newburgh Beacon Bridge in New York that you have to pay going north only. That's $15.25. So that means the total cost going I-81 to New England or to Hartford is $65.25. And the total cost coming south is just that $50 in extra fuel. And what that means in savings on tolls from going 95 is going north, you're saving $114.75. And coming south, you're saving $65. And now I'll have to just make up my mind on this. The north one is definitely, I'm definitely doing that. South is kind of like, it's $65 and it takes another extra hour and a half. Maybe I drive slow, 55 miles an hour. So I'll have to weigh that one case by case, but definitely going north, I want to be doing this route. Well, pretty much, you guys, that's it. I mean, that's the legitimate way we can save on these taxes, those high taxes in the Northeast, just by circumventing it. That's really the only legitimate way. Now, I will say there is another way. It's not legitimate, and I definitely wouldn't recommend this, but I will tell you a little story. So when I first started trucking, I had a series of, I'll call it a series of random fortunate events that basically helped me avoid paying tolls. So the first, and it was like basically 4 different things. So the first one was, I did not have an Easy Pass. All my tolls were getting done through like the cameras, or I had to go pay cash, right? The second thing is, when I first got my truck, the dealer put my temporary tag up in the uppermost right-hand corner of my windshield. And once I got my permanent tag, I was used to it being there, and I liked the way that it was safe from getting stolen and protected from getting rusty and old. So I put my permanent tag up there as well. Now, by being in that upper right-hand most corner, with the sun visor up there as well, the cameras weren't able to read that tag. So that was the second thing. My tag was in the upper right-hand corner. The third thing was, my first trailer was this old Vanguard trailer. Now, on the old Vanguard trailers, now my new trailer, my license plate is like flush with the back of the trailer. But on my Vanguard trailer, the license plate was like up under it a little bit. So it wasn't flush, it was recessed. So that's the third thing, that recessed tag, right? And then the last thing was, I had an American flag. And so I didn't want to cover my plate by putting it right in the middle. So I ended up putting it on the left lock bar of my trailer. And it also was kind of hanging down a little bit, but beneath my trailer, right? So a combination of the recessed tag The flag on the left, hanging down a little bit, it just like made this perfect angle to where the rear license plate readers, when you go through the tolls, it couldn't read my plate because it was blocked by the flag. So that series of fortunate events that I just got lucky, it just kind of like happened like that. It's nothing I would have really done intentionally. Just made it to where I wasn't paying tolls for a while. That's why I'm so kind of shocked by this now that I'm really getting into this, because it's kind of recent that I started paying all these Easy Pass tolls, But I will tell you something else. After doing this video, when I first started this video, I thought this video was gonna be kind of boring. I was like, what am I gonna say about tolls? But I think this video is actually a lot more important than I thought it was gonna be when I started. And let me tell you why. Because I think these tolls are sinister for two reasons. Number one, it's hard to figure out how much you're paying. And number two, it's way too easy to pay. So for the first one, hard to figure out, right? I got so frustrated doing this video. I was trying to figure out how much I was paying in tolls. I literally got my Easy Pass. I got all my statements for the whole 11 statements for all the months, put them all together, put them in a spreadsheet. Had to analyze that so many different ways to figure out exactly how much I was paying for these tolls. Some were south, some were north, some were during peak hours, some weren't. So it was hard to figure out all that, right? And that was only Easy Pass. So there was also Riverlink, Denver Express Toll, Sun Pass for Florida. That's 4, and I don't even have the Texas one. So these tolls are real complicated to figure out how much you're paying. That's the first sinister thing. And then the second sinister thing is not only is it hard to figure out, but it's so easy to pay. Now, there have been all these studies done on credit cards. Like when consumers pay with credit cards, right? They end up paying so much more because that pain of paying is eliminated. So there's a pain of paying when you dishing out cash, right? So Easy Pass, these tolls have taken us to the whole new level. They said when you are paying with this plastic right here, when you paying with plastic, you pay so much more. And then the MIT study said that using plastic was the equivalent of stepping on the gas of paying money, right? So, I mean, if they were talking about Easy Pass, they couldn't have said it even better. So anyway, I just feel like all these things make it kind of sinister. We are just paying our asses off with these tolls, just driving through, don't even have to pull out a card or nothing. So, and then they make it hard as I don't know what to figure out what you're paying. So, but anyway, that's it for this one, guys. I hope this helps somebody save some money on some tolls. Maybe I'll see you guys on 81. All right. Thanks for watching. I'll see you on the next one.